this is the.
What is that? Sign language?
No, this is the. This is what they're doing. Their British guys were doing in the WBC. You know, when they get double.
Oh,
Or
they hit a
something,
double to do the little. What is that, like sipping tea or something?
Yeah.
All right, guys, here we are. Back in the Juice Box Athletic Podcast, Baseball Development Show. We got our own Greg Hendricks in the house today. And we're just talking baseball. Just talking baseball. So, the World Baseball Classic stuff, like the qualifiers and all that stuff, that's happening now? Is that what's the stuff that's going on now? You were telling me about the China
the
stuff.
Euros just
the Euros
finished up, so they're doing I guess I didn't hear anything about it, but I guess they have the Pan American Games. Like, I don't know if that was going on, but Alan, I asked him if China was doing anything because I thought they probably were, and they had some the Asian games going. So yeah, the Euros are always every 2 years. Usually it's been like earlier in September, but it was a little bit later this year, so there were more AAA guys probably than ever. You had all the minor league guys were able to do it, and I saw Didi was there and everything, so that was pretty cool to see him playing for the Dutch.
Right.
Yeah, so and Spain won it, which I think that was the second time they've ever won it. The only countries to ever win it are Italy, Netherlands, Spain, and I guess Belgium. Belgium won it one time way back. So, but mostly the Dutch and Italy. So
I don't think people really know how big baseball is around the world. Like it's getting bigger.
Yeah. So like the rankings just came out, the most updated rankings, and so that was cool to see that GB moved up to that we're in the top 20 now, 18th in the world, just behind Germany at 17, and then you got the Czechs are pretty high now, like around 15, and
right.
a bunch of European countries kind of stacked right there, right on top of Canada. So
how many
Israel,
countries are in the world? I don't even know how many countries are there. Do you know?
No,
I don't either. We need to. Somebody needs to look that up for us. We need to know how many countries there are in the world. I know there's hundreds.
And how many actually have a national baseball team?
Right. Probably not all of them. Right. I'm sure some of the third world countries are probably not.
Some
housing. Some of them may be, but some of them are probably not housing a baseball operation of that sort.
Right. That's something. More and more countries are starting to add a federation. So one day we might not get the guys from the Bahamas.
Right.
Who
has the what continent has the biggest presence, do you think? Is it South America? Is it North America? Do you think it's the Asian countries? Like, who's got the biggest base if you took everything together?
I'd have to say
North America. Yeah.
Just because of.
But the Asian presence is growing. Right. I mean, maybe the biggest growth of all. I don't know.
No, it's really interesting. Kind of still towards what we're talking about. Alan was saying, for you guys that don't know, Alan was on the podcast. He played for China in the WBC, and he's training out here.
Yeah, he just got released from the Angels, so he's got an interesting story because did the world stuff, participated in that from China, but also has some affiliated experience for you guys that don't know. But continue.
But he was saying, just the other day in these Asian games, China beat Japan, which is, that's that's massive. Like, I mean, that'd be like Canada beating the U.S.
Right.
Probably that's even more. That would even crazier to me, really.
Yeah, that is
So,
crazy.
yeah.
No, I think it's interesting, man, because like I never really paid attention to this stuff growing up. Like not until the last few years.
Yeah.
And I guess it probably wasn't as big of a deal. Like the world baseball stuff wasn't as big of a deal until what? Probably like the
Well, it was. I
2010s.
remember when the WBC came out in 2005. It was
Yeah.
like announced, I guess,
Right.
for that '06 Classic, and so that was when I remember really. I was a junior in high school, and I remember really like thinking about it a lot then. But and then 10 years before that, I went to the Olympics, so that was like, you know, being from here and going to baseball at the Olympics was
Right.
pretty cool. Like seeing Italy play, and then finally playing in Italy in 2021 was pretty cool to finally, you know, kind of full circle.
Yeah. No, that is
Yeah.
pretty cool, man. Well, yeah, that's I think it's funny because the stuff kind of goes like year round, right? Like the World Baseball Classic obviously already happened, but then there's like different events that happen.
Well,
throughout
that's
the
how.
year.
Yeah, I mean, that's how it's kind of is nowadays. Like in we're seeing it in youth baseball with travel ball, and then all the way up into college through college with all the fall stuff that those guys are doing. Like we were talking about that last night. I mean, when we were in college, we weren't playing other teams in the fall, and now
Right.
they're doing that.
Right.
And you got the fall league, and you got a lot of these winter leagues are a lot more established where guys can go and make a little money.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it never really stops. The Euros going into pretty much into October. So
Yeah, it seems like baseball in general is year round. And it like this has been happening for the past 10, 15 years where it's like, oh, they got fall ball. It's year round. Like I remember, like when I lived in Montana up until I was 12, we only had like 4 months of decent weather. I mean,
right,
like
pretty much
when we were
like
playing in May, it was still snowing sometimes.
Yeah.
And then like we played little league out. They didn't have travel ball. It was little league. So we played in May, we played in June, and July. If you played in July, it was like all stars, and it was like the state tournament type thing.
Right.
And then by August, man, it was done.
Yeah.
But then we moved to Florida when I was 13, and it was like, oh, there's fall ball. Oh, there's summer ball all the way through July.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there's tournaments in November and December. Wow, like this never stops. And that's when I remember it kind of starting, but it was still like some people didn't do it. Some people didn't do it year round because you still had guys that played football, you still had guys that played basketball, and like so many guys still chose to do those sports during those seasons and not mess with baseball because it wasn't as organized. Now it's like organized to where, hey, if you're a baseball player, you're expected to go to that big tournament in December somewhere or that big showcase in December and be full tilt. Like, I don't know what I think about it. I don't know. Like, I'm seeing this. I'm coaching 17U now. Charlie just came off 17U and now he's doing 18U. Greg's son is a senior at St. Pius here in Atlanta. Like, dude, how, as a pitcher especially, I mean, position players too, but as a pitcher especially, how the hell are you supposed to navigate going year round and being full tilt? Like, oh, you're expected to pitch in December and be like mid-season form. Like we don't even expect the best baseball players on the planet to do that in the big leagues.
Right.
So it's like, I don't know, man. I find it kind of funny because like for me when I'm coaching this fall, and everything that we're doing here in terms of development, everything is revolving around it being the off season. Like we're trying to accomplish some very specific things with each athlete, and some of those things don't line up. and some of them certainly don't line up in terms of like on-field play and game winning. It's like, how do you navigate that, man? Like Charlie's going through it right now.
I mean, it's really hard. You just it's like I told Sean the other day. It's just try it one day at a time.
Yeah.
I mean, you're probably not going to be. It's October 6th right now, or 6th, yeah.
I never know the date. I never know what
So
day it is.
Yeah, it's October 6th right now. So like
Also don't
you're
have a
talking
watch on.
about like showcase in December or something like that. You're probably not even really going to be thinking about that right now.
Yeah.
So it's like you probably are.
But like all right, so Charlie, like in Charlie's case, he's getting recruited. He's getting seen.
Yeah.
They're trying to work through this. Do coaches care? Does a college coach like? I think college coaches understand the seasons probably as well as anybody.
Right. I mean, when you're looking at the camps and everything, I mean, it does seem like there is like some rhyme and reason for the dates. Like they are taking some consideration when they're scheduling these camps to where it's like, okay, we got some camps coming up even end of this month, early November.
Trying to line it up with travel ball type thing.
So you can kind of, yeah, and then, you had some right there at the very end of the summer season. So luckily you can kind of line it up with some of that stuff to where it's like, all right, I'm going to this camp and then I'm taking a little break. I'm taking a good 6 weeks off from maybe just throwing once a week.
Yeah.
But,
no, yeah, it's a good point, right? Because for the the whole recruiting process, college coaches know what they're doing.
I remember, to what you're talking about though. I do remember, like, I know Perfect Game has had all these showcase organizations are having showcases in they're all year round. I mean, they're not really taking much consideration when it comes to like.
How much of that do you think is like, okay, we know we need to offer these, but we have wall-to-wall, back-to-back tournaments with 400 teams in them, and this is literally the only time we can do it. December 17th. That's the only time we can do that showcase. January 11th is the only time we can do that showcase, and we at least want to do it. Like, how much of it is that? And then on the flip side of that, like, is that the right thing to do? Like, if you're Perfect Game or PBR or whoever, Perfect Game PBR is probably gonna be pissed. I'm saying this right now, but
it comes down to like they just have so much power. They have so much leverage.
People see PG showcase 200 coaches, and I gotta go to that. I gotta be there. I gotta go to that one. Not taking into effect, I haven't thrown in 6 weeks.
Well,
I haven't done anything in 6 weeks. I'm not ready to go. I'm ramping up. I'm ramping down. Like, we gotta, like, I get it. The power. There's a lot of power in these things, but who has the most power? Like, the player has the power. Like, just jumping into like your schedule and making sure you have a gauge on what you're doing at what time of year, like that should be the power, right?
Yeah. It's so much about timing and like doing as much as you can, in those crucial times. Like, I think, like, if you're a junior, like you're talking about your guys like at 17U, and you have an opportunity to go to like a Perfect Game showcase where, maybe it's one of the better ones where you're like invited, and it's like, this is really like, this is maybe top, like a more of a top, you got to get invited, top 500 or something like that.
Yeah, sure.
And it's like, this is when they're doing it. Like, this is when all the pro scouts are going to be there. The colleges are going to be there, and it's like, you just you gotta do it.
Yep.
It's like,
Yep.
so you have to plan for it. It's like,
And I get it. Like
maybe it's like one of those things where it's like this goes back to like people placing so much less importance on high school baseball.
Yep.
Too. So it's like, you go out to this thing in December, and all these cross checkers, you got GMs, or this type of stuff goes on.
Yep.
Are there, and they see you throwing 94. They're not going to really be too concerned with how hard you're throwing in February that much. It's like, okay, he's a little bit behind, or whatever. Like he's got a long summer.
Well, and that's what I was saying about the knowledge. Like those guys they understand the time of year. They can see through what the actual metrics and the numbers say, and they can say this kid has some. Like if he does what he's supposed to do by the right time of year, he's going to be doing the right things. We're going to keep an eye on him, right? I mean, that's pretty much how it goes. I think a lot of these guys think that you go to a showcase, you go to an event, and like that's it. One day only. That's you get to show it, and if you're 92, but you only show 88, that you're not going to get a chance. And that's not how it works. Guys understand the time of year.
Time of year, exactly.
They understand that. Yeah. Coaches understand that.
It's like, you might see it have if they're really interested in you and at this type of showcase, they're going to know who you are before you get there, obviously. Right. And they'll say like, how much you've been throwing, and we just want to see you throw a little off the slope at 70%.
Yep.
We just want to see.
You say that all the time. It's funny. You use that 70% all the time. You wonder, like, because now everything's max effort.
And
right?
And that's why it's like you need to be able to, another reason why you need to be able to do it, because
a coach can tell.
Might ask you to do it one day.
Right, and a coach can tell if you're max effort.
70%.
Yeah.
He's like, you can't throw 70%.
Right. Right, and if you like, for you pitchers, I mean, it's not only pitchers. I mean, this goes for hitters and position players too. Like somebody who's looking for a high level infielder, they want to see somebody be able to do it at less than game speed. Yep. And then they want to see somebody be able to take BP at less than game speed and still show the efficiency and still show just the quality of what they're doing. I think there's a lot that can be said for that.
I remember a game this summer stuck out in my mind. One of the game in the World with Bat, we were playing that BPA team. It was really good. I was saying they were like the best team I'd really seen in terms of roster on paper and commits and everything. Team from California, and watching them, their guys, is exactly what you're talking about. And in some of these local tournaments, like you might see the guys where it's like they're trying so hard to like I got a cannon, like between every throw, between every inning. And, I could just tell some of the parent, I look around and I'm watching some of these dads that, dads are intense when your kid's 17. It's like, let's go. My son needs to find a place to play. Like, why is he not getting interest? So they're watching these kids like, what's so good about this team? Mm-hmm. What's so good about this kid that he's going to Arizona, And you could tell they're kind of surprised because the shortstop, he's just throwing it across like 50%, like, and just kind of like.
I think you're making a great point right now, and listen to anybody who's watching this right now. Please understand what we're talking about. Like, there is a fine line between not caring, not giving a shit, and just knowing how to taper down your intensity. Like, we need to still don't get this wrong. You need to care. You can't be at shortstop just flipping balls. Like, that's not going to work. But you need to be able to do stuff at a sub-maximal effort to save bullets, like save the bullets for the game, save the bullets for when you do deem max effort, but also like just knowing how to operate at different intensities and volumes. Like that is 100% probably the most important thing for somebody becoming a more professional next level player. When you watch big leaguers on the infield taking a ball from the first baseman, like even things like the way the first baseman flips a ball to guys in between innings. Sometimes the first baseman will throw the ball in the air because he needs some throws at 70%. Sometimes the first baseman will deliberately throw the guy one hops, and then the guy picks it up, looks at the ball for a second. Do I got four seam grip? Shuffle 70% at 78 miles an hour. Not everything is 104. Not everything is Manny Machado. And then they know how to take those same moves and just scale up the volume. And I think the same goes for a pitcher. You watch a pitcher in the bullpen that's 96 to 98 in a game, his first 7 pitches he throws in the pen are probably not 96 to 98. Right? Same thing with a catcher. Not every single throwdown he makes is spastic and intense. You watch a hitter on deck, they're not taking 140% dry hacks falling over in the on deck circle, right? Like there's feels. Like I would say for you guys watching this, you need to understand that we're not telling you not to try hard. You need to try at everything you do. You need to give effort, but you need to understand the difference in like false effort and actually doing what you need to do to be good right there. Like people want to be able to see you have some composure and be calm and be less than.
And that's where it can help you a lot too. Like you're talking about the ways it's going to help you. You know, I would say just one of the other ways is just being able to calmly make a play when the pressure is on. You know, it's like you can't be. You got to take your time to an extent, like when you know secure the ball, stay in down in your throw, you know, and just being understanding like that in just having that internal clock and being able to stay calm and just know that you don't have to make some like incredible throw. Like the throw is always gonna outrun the runner.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, and you're not gonna throw it like 50% in the game. You know, once you get that, you're gonna have more urgency, obviously, in game. So being able to just really calm yourself, and that's what I always say with the pitchers is like we're just trying to calm you down.
Yeah.
Because guys, they totally get so amped up. You know, once they're going down the slope, they get going down the slope, and they just you get kind of excited and rush.
Yeah.
So the arm doesn't.
It's funny that you're talking about infield stuff now, you know, but like guys, Greg played first base and hit in high school too. You know,
Yeah,
6'4" lefty.
That stuff helped me, you know.
It helps you be athletic.
Yeah, it helps me a lot. Like, I'm so glad that I did get to play first base my senior year, and
it's funny because I hear you talk about this with Charlie now. It's like you really push him to still be an infielder. You know, Charlie's a right-handed pitcher, guys. He's 6 foot, 6'1". He's 170 pounds. But he's a pitcher. He's gonna be a pitcher at the next level. But he still plays infield, and it keeps him athletic. He's still swinging the bat. Like there's a lot to be said for that, right? And going back to what you're saying about just understanding the moves and like the throw to first is gonna outrun the runner. Like I remember in high school when I was still a pipsqueak, but seriously a pipsqueak. Like sophomore year, 120 pounds, you know, trying to play infield. I'm playing second base. We got a stud pitch, kind of like Charlie, a stud pitcher who plays shortstop that when he pitched, I needed to slide over. I needed to play shortstop. And man, I remember so many of my throws just like skirting in the dirt. You know, good play, smooth and skirting in the dirt because you don't have that rhythm and that feel of understanding it at 50% to do it on the left side. And I remember thinking to myself, I know that doesn't feel right. I know that sucks. But at that age, I didn't really know what it was that I was fixing. And hitters do the same thing. It's like, God, give me another one. That was my first swing of the day. It's not that it was your first swing of the day. That's not why you messed it up. It was because you tried to take your first swing of the day at 112%, and you didn't have the feel yet. Same thing with pitchers, right? First throw, you sail it. Oh, my arm, man. So I got to get warmed up. No, you're trying to take it too quick before your body is stimulated enough to make that move happen. Yeah. Right? So I'm listening to everything you're saying right now. Guys, Greg could probably put on the first baseman's mitt, take ground balls, and deliver perfect double play feeds right now at 36 years old, because he understands, over the course of his career playing, he understands this timing. He understands how to do things sub-maximal, right? And there's a lot to be said for that. You guys have to learn how to be able to do stuff at less than 100%, but also know how to turn up the heat when you need to. That's important, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, especially, I love what you're talking, where we're going with this, with the hitters too. But, just talking about pitchers, I mean, we got, when we do our Velocity Max, I mean, it's an hour-long session, right? And now, we're having guys that are starting to get here a little earlier, and they get their work done, and they're finishing up their bands, which is like the last thing in the warm up, when it's time to get started, and it's like, so you're gonna throw for an hour, and you don't even really understand sub-maximal intent. Right.
It's impossible. You can't do it.
Yeah.
You can't throw full ass for an hour straight. You can't do it.
No. And that's why the last 20 minutes, when we're trying to keep going, keep working on stuff, it all starts just kind of
unraveling.
Yeah.
Well, it's good though, because the guys, I like the eagerness. I like the
and that's all it is. Like exactly. Like we're talking about you going over to shortstop. That was just eagerness. You're like, oh, I got to make. You knew you had to make a longer throw.
Yeah.
So you're trying to do more with like just basically muscling up.
Muscling up. Yep.
Right. Instead of just like, okay, this is a longer throw. Just let me just arc one out over there, and just feel a little bit of layback,
Yep. No, it's, you guys, you have to understand how to do that. Like, if there's one thing I could tell all of the guys that I have in here training, all the guys that I coach on the field, any baseball player who comments down below, anybody who, replies to one of our stories on Instagram, all the interaction I have with baseball players, if there's one thing I could tell them, learn how to be more professional in your movements. And I started becoming obsessed with this as like a 16-year-old baseball player, because Greg, I'm from the Central Florida area. And when I had days off from baseball or whatever in March, I used to go watch spring training. We used to go watch a lot of spring training, guys, and there's nowhere better than to see guys doing stuff at a sub-maximal level than in spring training when they're trying to get the feels.
Right.
And I remember watching I used to like watching Jimmy Rollins play shortstop. 5'9", 175 pound, not a big guy. And, I would go early. We used to watch, we used to go over to Clearwater a lot and watch the Phillies. And I used to watch him take infield. Everything smooth, slow, calm. But then I used to watch him take ground balls in the game, and it was like that same feel, just with the volume turned up. And watching him make backhand plays in the hole with no rush, he knew exactly how much time he had. Turn, throw, let the arm lay back, throw a one hop, not trying to throw it 100, throw a one hop, get the guy by half a step. And I'm like, oh boy, okay, now I'm starting to understand what shortstop is about, what infield is about. And from that moment, that's when I started trying to mimic those type of things. How do I look more professional? I don't want to be a spazzy little 120-pound infielder anymore. I want to look like I'm a professional. When I swing the bat, how do I take my practice swings? How do I take my cage swings? How do I take my BP swings at sub-maximal to make it smoother and still let the ball jump? And I became obsessed with that. Like to this day, I'm still obsessed with that. And I told myself that if I ever coached, I was going to make sure that I tried to make players understand being more professional. And it's impossible. A lot of guys are never going to get it. But the kids who pay attention, they get it. You can tell. Like every year that they get older, from 14 to 15 to 16 to 17, you can see them starting to act more professional. Like, what do you see this too with pitchers? Like, it's the same thing. Just the mannerisms on the bump. When you step off, what are the mannerisms? When you toe the rubber again, what are the mannerisms? When you don't like something, what are the mannerisms? Like, just 100% professional behavior. Like, that's what I love seeing youth baseball players do. And how do we get more players to take pride in that? I think the answer is maturity. But I think that's something that not enough coaches talk about. Everything is like, well, you need to execute this better, and you need to get more layback. And you sent me that post the other day with Lance Berkman talking about hitting. Man, that was gold timing. Like, you timed it up perfectly, because we were talking with our hitters at the end of the night, and I'm telling guys, like, look, guys, this is not robot. You're not a robot. You have to take information, process it, and then be a human about it. There's a human element to this game. And with everything you do, you're trying to be more professional. He was talking about how, like, you're talking about elite hitters when you're comparing stuff to big leaguers. So you can't take something a big leaguer's trying to do and have a 12-year-old try to do it, not do it right, and not execute it, and expect the same result as a big leaguer. It doesn't work like that. So just understanding how to start molding your game to be more professional, but then understanding you're still at the level that you're at. And you just bridge that gap over time. Like, I really think that's the answer to players becoming next level. Bridging the gap between where they're at and becoming more professional with their game. Not necessarily always metric driven. There's always going to be metrics. We're always going to talk about how hard guys are throwing, how hard they're hitting the ball, how fast they're running.
But you get, and we used to talk about this a lot. Like, you get so hung up on the metrics, and you just got to remember, like, you're gonna be amped up when you go in the game, right? And that's why part of why we're talking so much about understanding sub max. You got to be able to calm yourself down.
Yeah.
Because you're gonna go into a game and you're just so freaking jacked up.
And when you're jacked, like you're saying that you're so 100% right. You were probably the same way when I played, man. Like, I used to get like jittery sometimes. Like you get done with an at bat and you get back in the dugout and you're shaking.
I remember, when I started throwing really hard once I got to junior college, I could. My coach used to say it all the time too. Like, Hendricks, he throws the freaking shit out of it. But I would get out there and I'd be so jacked up, throwing like 94, but my leg is like my
twitching.
back leg is like twitching. Like, runner gets on and I'm like, I was just so jacked up,
right?
Man. And I did not understand. I lost that feel of sub-maximal intent and everything from not playing first base anymore, not flipping those one hoppers between every inning,
right?
And just kind of became that little bit robotic pitcher. Lost some of that feel. So it's just when you go out between innings, it's like, first pitch, you're talking about it. You've been sitting down for 15 minutes. Like, you got to come out there and just be. Sometimes it might be 50% on that first one.
Yeah.
And that's
what is, because as coaches we start to become hyper aware of this stuff, right? Because we've been through it, we've experienced it, and I think you could, I don't have children, but you've got Charlie. You can probably say the same for being a dad and watching this stuff unfold too, because you've been through it. So for all the dads out there that have played baseball or played a sport and understand the pressures and understand that anxiety you're talking about, like, do kids feel it as much? Because I don't remember. I remember feeling it more when I got to like the later years of high school and into college.
Right.
Before that, everything was kind of just a blur. Like you just see ball, hit ball, you make plays.
You know, and I don't know, somewhere along the way, I lost that kind of, that ignorance, like that naiveness, where it's like you're just you're not just playing like without thinking about like just more negative thoughts started creeping in.
So it's like I'm stopping you right there because you're saying that like as a kid, the negative thoughts start creeping in. You start building that anxiety a little bit, and then fast forward to now we're adults and we're coaches, and how that gets like amplified. Like, so how important is it for us as coaches to make sure that we see it happening? Like we see when a player goes from the naive to starting to understand, but then make sure that the understanding doesn't creep into the negative or the overthinking, the overanalyzing. Because like this is something that I think about a lot as coaches. And when I watch kids at 13 and I watch them grow 14, 15, 16, 17, most of them, if I'm with them long enough, I can almost pick out the time period when I can start to see them light bulb flash. And then usually the next step is overthink, overdo, do more, think more,
Right.
Try to do too much.
And that's where it goes back to kind of what got us still on this, like talking about, how do you starve the doubt is through intelligence, right? So it's like intelligence will tell you do it like less effort, right? Like just not trying to do as much.
Yeah.
Right. Be able to do it at sub maximal intent, like we're talking about. That's what intelligence tells you. So it's like starving the self doubt with intelligent thought. And it's just that you gotta keep telling yourself like positive. It's attack the zone.
Well, I love it. So
like
say that again. So starve the self doubt with intelligent thought. Right. Starve doubt, think intelligent.
Right.
Starve doubt by being more intelligent. Like when you break it down, that makes sense, right? Like things start creeping in. Don't give in.
Yeah. Don't just you kind of fall into this like I'm just a dummy. It's
right.
Like this kind of this timid kind of presence out there.
So example, like not to break up where you're at, but this just flashed in my mind. Oh, I'm a dummy. We got guys that say, I'm thinking of one particular guy right now. He says this all the time. Oh, I'm dumb.
Right.
Like a more intelligent response would be, oh, that makes sense. Right. That makes sense. Okay, now I've got it.
Yeah.
Instead of like, oh, I suck. Like those type of things.
And this stuff, some of this stuff, it gets a little cliche maybe, but it does not, I don't care one bit.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I was telling Charlie the other day because, him and Landon are talking and they're like, I think Landon's like, I can't hit. And Charlie's like, oh, I can't hit either. Pitchers.
They're like feeding each other's self-doubt.
Yeah, and I'm like, guys, don't say that. Yeah. Because like, Charlie, you're going to fucking hit this spring.
Yeah.
And when you say something, whether you really truly mean it or not, like, yeah, kid, you say, oh, I'm dumb. Like, you probably don't hopefully mean that you really think you're dumb, but your body doesn't know the difference.
Right.
And that's what,
was it
like Bruce Lee.
Yeah.
Thing that I saw, like,
yeah. Don't trick yourself.
Like,
Right.
yeah, don't say it if you really don't 100% mean it, because your body does not know the difference. Your brain.
So what about what was it Pete Rose that had like in his book or something about just all the positive baseball talks. I think it was. I feel like it was Pete Rose. I don't know. I could be wrong about this, but
Probably because
just like literally how to be positive. So you hear all the time like pitching guys like, "Hey, don't walk the leadoff guy. Hey, don't fall behind in the count.
right.
Hey, don't miss the first pitch fastball. Hey, don't do this. Don't do." And it's all this don't. Whatever is said out of somebody's mouth, that's what your brain interprets.
Right.
So
Like,
you don't necessarily interpret the do or the don't process. You're trying to interpret the information. Do or don't gets left out of it a lot. So if I say, hey, don't walk the leadoff hitter, your first thought is on walking the leadoff hitter. You left out the don't. If I say, hey, get the first hitter out in 3 pitches or less, your thought process is 3 pitches or less, get the hitter out. Right? Like you're saying the same thing in a different way, in a positive way. And you're right, this is so cliche, but I'm not sure that people really spend time thinking about this. And like I do, I've had to, because I've had so much negative thought during my baseball career.
Absolutely.
And I've seen the power of the positive. Like I've seen the power of it. It sounds dumb, guys. It sounds cliche, but I've witnessed it and I've experienced it enough to where when I coach and I catch myself on the negative, I'm like, don't say that anymore. Like, stop saying that. But it's hard. You have to be very self-aware to be able to do that, right?
Yeah, even when it comes to
coaching.
Yeah, I'm probably guilty of that. I know, like, don't do this.
Sure.
And it's like, it needs to be a more, like, affirmative, like, what to do, right? Like, what is the task at hand?
Right.
Um,
So like are you seeing that now with Charlie? Like do you have, like, does Charlie have his bad days and his good days? Like days where cuz I noticed that some days he comes in here and he's like ultra positive. And then some days he comes in here and he's quiet. So like I take him as being the type of guy that when he goes negative, he kind of goes quiet. He kind of shuts down. Like,
Right.
do you see that? I mean, you spend more time with him than I do.
mhm.
And then, like, what has that been like during this recruiting process? Some D1 schools are looking at him. He's starting to get in his head, okay, that's the level I'm going to be able to play at. Like, you talk about, staying positive and affirmative action. Like, is that how he's approaching, like, the recruiting thing, too? Because I think this stuff applies to other pieces of the game, not just playing, but, like, you get kids that are starting to go down this recruiting process and they think they're going to be a D1 athlete. And all of a sudden, that coach didn't call you back. He didn't email you back. No response after the camp you went to that you thought you were going to love. No response after the visit that you fell in love with the campus and now the coach doesn't want to talk to you anymore. And then all of a sudden some other schools creep in, some lower level schools creep in, and that negative thought you had about the first few schools that you absolutely love starts to creep in, and now all of a sudden you find yourself not enjoying the recruiting process. So like this goes way deeper than just executing on the field, guys. It's everything that has to do with your success in the game and beyond the game. Like, do you treat your experiences positively? Do you think positively towards what you're going to do? So like, what does that look like now? You're in the thick of it with recruiting. Like, how are you handling it? How's Charlie handling it?
I'm probably not. He's probably handling it a lot better than I am. At least from what I can tell. Yeah, he's kind of. You're probably right though. Like when things aren't going quite as well, he's a little more just kind of gets quiet. But it's hard. Like it's hard. I know it's harder on him than he lets on.
Yeah.
But it's I think he does a really good job, with just we. I would say to what we're talking about, this is why you just can't get too hung up on the extrinsic rewards,
Right.
right? It's like, okay, so you get a scholarship to go play at Auburn. Like, what does that mean? Does that mean that you're a better person now? Like you're
That you've arrived.
that you've arrived. It's like
Right.
it it doesn't. At the end of it's just that's why we just have to focus on the day to day like intrinsic reward. Like why are you working out? Why today? Like why are you doing this? Not so that you can get a D1 scholarship. It's because you want to get better today and you love doing what
Right.
you do. You love playing the game.
Yep.
And I think if you can just kind of keep that perspective, then it really is going to work out. It's like if worst case scenario, and I say worst case because it probably is worst case. Like you go to junior college, there's nothing wrong with that.
Mm-hmm.
But you're gonna have to have that type of mindset because if you're just focused on I gotta go I gotta move on, I gotta get drafted or whatever, go SEC, it's just not gonna work out. you know so you gotta just focus on
Taking care of the moment.
Yeah. So that's why I said, like, when we're talking about these like showcase timing and everything, realistically it's like you probably aren't gonna know. It's just it's hectic, with this recruiting stuff, and when you turn 16, 17, fortunately these kids have fall break now, so
Yeah.
they can have a little break
Right.
to do some of this stuff. But yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you're talking about being in the moment. I think there is a perfect amount of being present in the moment and also just understanding the path ahead. It doesn't mean you have to force it
Yeah.
and make it happen. Understanding the path ahead. And I say this all the time, like everybody's cliche is trust the process, right? Which, as cliche as it is, it makes sense. But I would take it one step further and say you have to love the process too. Because if you have the trust in it, but you don't love it, it's not going to work. And if you love it, but you don't trust it, it's not going to work.
Right.
It's a tandem. It has to be both. You have to trust the process and love the process. So what you're saying right now about like trusting the worst case scenario, if you go to JUCO, trust it and love that. If you end up going to the D1, trust it and love that wherever you're at.
Who knows? You could go JUCO and you could be a first rounder.
Right.
I mean, you just don't know.
Right.
Because if you, like you're saying, if you have a process that you totally believe in and you're really in love with it, doing it every day like you love it. It's not like I gotta go I gotta go work out. It's just Ronald Acuna. That guy probably he's walking around his probably he's at the field right now. He's dancing around in his underwear with his bat,
just loving it.
Just
loving it.
just loving it. Yeah. So
at the end of the day, guys, you have to love it. You got to trust it. You got to love it. You got to understand it. You got to be more professional. If you do those things, you're going to be all right. if you guys are interested in more information on the recruiting stuff that we're talking about, reach out to us. We have some guys that we trust. We can get you set up properly. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Baseball Development Show here in the Juice Box, Athletic Baseball, Atlanta, Georgia. Catch you guys soon.